Welcome to the IBMS Lothian and Borders podcast.
Is there enough bagpipe in that? Hello, my name is Mike Gray and I'd like to welcome you to the IBMS Lothian and Borders branch podcast. What's all this about, you might ask? Well, for those of you listening who don't know, the Institute of Biomedical Science, which is the professional body for biomedical scientists in the UK, has branches in all corners of the country, and in the southeast of Scotland, where Edinburgh and the Borders sit, we have a branch. So this podcast was an idea from the branch committee to look at, in the first instance, at career stories of biomedical scientists. Why career stories? There is a lot of information out there on how to get into biomedical science, and there are some podcasts that focus on scientific topics. But from a people perspective, we often get very useful talks from senior individuals in the profession. And as interesting as they are, the committee hit upon the idea of listening to all levels of staff involved in biomedical science with the aim of capturing the stories of professionals you might not necessarily hear from, and to look at all stages of the career ladder. So each story, we hope, will be inspirational. Each story will have a message, and if anything, will highlight the myriad of ways that people get into biomedical science. So if you like stories and finding out about people, then stick around. What could possibly go wrong? Hello, everybody. So we're here today with Valerie Lawrence, and I'm in the UK, and Valerie is in down under. What do we call it? Australia. So whereabouts in Australia are you?
So I'm in Brisbane, which is on the east coast of Australia, in Queensland.
Is that where most of the people live? Do they live on the east coast, or?
No, most people live on the east coast, but probably Sydney and Melbourne are the more populated cities. Brisbane's the third biggest in Australia.
Right.
Most people live in a city, yeah.
Okay. We have had on our stats, we can see that people across the world listen to this. People in the United States listen to this. People in Australia have listened to this. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're our only one from Australia.
But we do have electricity now. So
you've got that's right.
Yeah.
And I'll avoid any jokes about you all being prisoners of Her Majesty and stuff like that.
Well, I'm English, so, maybe pivot your jokes.
Right, okay. We'll get to that. Right, okay. So
Yep.
we'll start at the top. We'll start at the top along the lines of Valerie, at the moment, explain what you're currently doing. And then we're going to go back in time.
So I work for Australian Red Cross Lifeblood, which is the sole supplier of blood and blood products to the whole of Australia. My role is the Director of Scientific and Technical Services within our manufacturing division. So it's a national role overseeing, the science behind what we do, the testing, and I've got a few other responsibilities as well, but that's the core of what I do, ensuring that we comply with the regulators, all those other things that are really important to making sure the blood supply is safe.
Wow. So you're basically in charge of the blood supply for Australia?
Right. I think my colleagues may disagree with me there, but the safety of the blood supply, I guess, from a point of view of how we test and how we validate equipment and what our procedures tell us to do and how we respond to incidents, all of that sits with me. I also have, which is something that sometimes takes up a lot of time actually, responsibility for the response to severe weather events and other incidents within Queensland. And Queensland's a fifth the size of Europe, so you can imagine, whilst we're not that populated, we're a very large country, so there's a bit to do there. And for example, this year I had to deal with the tropical cyclone Alfred, which was the first one that had hit Brisbane in 50 years.
Oh
so
dear.
A lot going on.
Yes. Because there's cyclones in the southern hemisphere and typhoons in the north, isn't that right? I think.
That's right. Yep. So
Oh,
we
there you
have
go.
cyclones. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so we're going to get into our time machine now,
Yes.
and we're going to go right back to the very, very beginning. So when you were at, let's start from school.
Sure.
So when you were at school,
Yes.
what were the thoughts going on in your head around what you might do as a career going forward?
Okay. So I have to say I was okay at school. I was pretty good. I probably loved science. But I didn't mind the other subjects as well. PE was not on the list, but anyway. But honestly, had no idea what I was going to do, and so did a couple of three A levels. I can't even remember now; it's such a long time ago. Biology, maths, and chemistry. Didn't do very well at those, actually, I have to say. But so by that point, I'd sort of gone into that sciencey world, and so that was, I guess, where I was sitting. I did great with lots of things, but not so good with a few things. And then that's after my A levels, which was I really had to get a job because we couldn't afford as a family for me to go to uni. So I sort of that was actually how I got into this, which is I turned 60 last week, so we're talking a 40-odd year situation here.
But if sorry to interrupt, but just for the people, just for the people that are on that are listening to this.
Yes.
So where was school?
So I grew up in a beautifully not beautiful place called Farnborough in Hampshire, which the only thing it's famous for is the air show, which that's about it really. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot else there. So I grew up in Farnborough and stayed there. Yeah, I was there for the whole of my childhood. So.
Right. Okay. Okay. So this is a long way from where you are, but we'll get to that.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay.
There's a whole story here.
There's a whole story. Okay. Yes. So during your school career, you started to make presumably decisions on what you were going to do next in terms of university job, like you've alluded to.
Yeah.
So what happened? How did that pan out?
Yeah, so just to give you a bit more of a background, my dad died when I was 4, so we grew up with not a lot of money in the house. My brother did an apprenticeship, aeronautical, and I had to make a choice really as to what I was going to do because university was not on the cards for us. So when I did my A-levels and left college, I had a look around in the local paper, and there was a job at Frimley Park Hospital, which is in Surrey, which is very close to where I grew up. And the reason I took the job was because I could get the bus there. So that was how I started. But also at the time, and I'm not sure now in the UK how they work, but they would allow you to do your your HND and also work at the same time. So that was really attractive to me. And so I started working there when I was 18. I resat one of my A-levels that year and then went on to do the HND at Nescott.
Right, okay. So, but you were employed initially as a
trainee.
So it was a trainee medical laboratory scientific officer?
That's right, yep.
And was it a particular discipline that you were employed?
No, so that was probably one of the great things about it, that they did a rotation through microbiology, hematology, transfusion, chemistry, and histo. So we got a chance 6 months in each area, which, really great, particularly when you're studying as well, because you sort of get that feel for what you like and what you don't like. And also, hands on the tools while you're learning is a great place to be, I think. So I did that and then really landed with a huge love for particularly transfusion, but hematology as well. So then sort of moved into that hematology transfusion area and stayed there for that. And then went on to do my fellowship while I was there as well in transfusion science.
Right. So you did... So basically, you got sent away day release for your HNC, HND, and then
got in my little yellow Renault 5 and went up the motorway.
And then trained, and then you trained for, at that time, that would be the IBMS special examination, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, a fellowship, actually. It was
was it?
Oh,
had they changed it?
Yeah. So it was 1990 something, I think. I think it was already the fellowship by then.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
So, what was your employment status at that point? Because you'd been as a trainee, so did you go
so then
up?
I was a grade 1. I can't even remember. I'm sorry what we were called then, but a grade 1 MLSO.
MLSO 1, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And doing on call at Frimley Park as well, which was single discipline on call. So we would stay on site or go home and then get called in for whatever happened. You know, those great days of aneurysms and hemorrhages and car accidents and all of that sort of stuff. So I did that while I was doing my fellowship for a couple of years, and then, which is probably where my life changed quite significantly. During that time, we had a young Aussie working holiday person working in the lab, and so I started seeing him, and he's now my husband of 35 years.
So,
and that's
so this is a case of kidnapping.
Absolutely. And I had so many people say to me, he's only on a working holiday, he'll dump you and run and all of this sort of stuff. But lo and behold, that didn't happen. He's still trying to get away. But
Right, okay. So by the time you had finished your fellowship exam, you were still at the MLSO 1 level, yes?
Yeah. So at that point, so I actually, a few things happened personally to me during that time, which were quite difficult. I had the best boss, I think. I shouldn't say this because I have a boss now, but I still try to think of a boss that I appreciated more than the guy that ran the lab in, Peter Jeans, his name was, that ran the lab in Frimley. And I approached him and said, my hubby, obviously not that my hubby then, is going to go backpacking around the Middle East for a few months. How would you feel about me going with him? And they let me go. And that's so we had 8 months traveling around the Middle East, spending a lot of time in Turkey, and then came back to work at Frimley again for a little while after that, still in the grade 1 position.
Okay.
But that was just a fantastic thing to do as well, just to walk away and, get on a plane and see what happened in your life, sort of thing. So that was really good. And then after we came back, we had a long, hard think about things. And at that point, we decided to take our first move, because we've had a couple, to Australia.
Okay.
So from Frimley, I resigned from that role, and we moved over here. When we'd done this a few times, actually, just got rid of everything we owned, got on a plane to see what would happen, and so lived in Australia from 92 to 94, and got married while we were here. So, but then we realised that at that time Brisbane was still a bit of a sleepy, back road sort of thing. Nothing really happened here, and we were very, very young at that point still, and we got lured back. My husband got offered a job. He's also obviously in med lab science, and he got offered a job working for a drug research company in the UK. And so we moved back then in '94.
Right. Right. Okay. So
there's a lot in this story.
No, this is great. So. Yep. Right. Okay. So, been to Australia. So you've been kidnapped and taken to Australia.
Yep. So
with nothing, and then he's got a job back in the UK, and then you do the same again.
So we were here for 2 years, and during that time, it was actually one of my worst jobs. I got a job, and it is not my forte in any way whatsoever, as a phlebotomist at a country hospital. Okay. And it was just awful. It was bleeding babies and, very old people, and it was awful. Anyway, I only did that for 3 months, and then was offered a job at the Gold Coast Hospital, and they recognised my qualifications because of the fellowship, which was fantastic. So I worked there as a scientist for a couple of years, and then Glenn got offered his job. We came back to the UK, and then it was sort of like, okay, let's try again. What do we do now?
Okay, so then what happened? Post 94.
So then, Okay, so then in '94, I came back and got a job as a senior in Queen Mary's in Roehampton, so just outside London. We moved to Carshalton, which is just south of London, and we travelled into the city. Basically, well, Queen Mary's wasn't quite in the city, but I worked there for 2 years, and loved that job. I love working in labs. I love the camaraderie, the excitement of it all, learning new things every day. So we were pretty happy there. Made another group of friends, and that was great. And then a job was advertised at the Royal London and Barts, and so I moved there as a senior in blood transfusion, which was a whole other world because it's just so busy and, Barts and the London, completely different environments. Yeah. Barts was in the finance district and the London was in the west, in Whitechapel, and, it was the East End. But the traumas were, thick and fast. There 8 a day we would have, and all sorts of things going on. So that was a pretty exciting place to work. They were already at that time dabbling in DNA forensic testing, doing all the investigations themselves. Nothing was being referred to NHSBT. So that was a great time. The hospital owned 2 pubs, so that was an interesting.
The hospital owned 2 pubs.
Yes. Yeah. So the pub next door, I think, and the pub down the road also were part of the London at the time, and so there was quite a significant social life, I have to say, at that point.
Would they get away with that now? I don't think so.
Probably not. But I actually, going back to, sorry, I'm rambling on a bit, but going back to my first job, and you probably remember this yourself, Mike, this type of thing going on. When I first started working in the labs in the late 80s, people used to smoke in the lab. So people would have a pipe, and and I just think about that now. And mouth pipette ESRs, so you got the old mouth full a couple of times, and then that never happened again. But no, absolutely not. The world's changed so much for the better, I think, in a lot of ways. I have to say. But so great social life at the London. Ended up running the transfusion department there for a little while, and also working at Barts, which is just a beautiful, beautiful environment to be in. So that was really exciting, and so up until that point, my entire career had been in hospitals and was where I thought I'd always be, to be honest with you. And then in 2000, we decided. Well, we came over here for my mother-in-law's birthday, and we'd gone from nothing ever happens here to we could have a really nice house here. So we sort of made the plans then to move back again, and again had no jobs, nothing to come to, and thought we'd just wing it and see what happened. So we arrived back here in 2000.
So where in Australia was this that you come back to? The same area?
So that was to Brisbane. That was where Glenn's family, where my husband's family were. So we made our roots here, and when I think about it now, we're sort of right on the outskirts of Brisbane. A really nice area from the point of view where down the road you're in the country, but it's an hour to drive into work from here, and but none of the family are around us now because they've all moved out, but we've just sort of stayed where we are. I think maybe because we did move around quite a bit, we've put our roots down here.
Right. So, and I suppose, part of that, it's endlessly fascinating to me is so you land in Australia and you maybe come from a flat in London.
Yeah.
And then you can buy a ranch just outside Brisbane.
Yeah, well, we bought, it was 20 odd years ago, but we bought the block of land and built the house on this land.
Wow.
And at that point, we bought a quarter of an acre with city views and views of the mountains, and it was equivalent to probably £30,000.
Wow.
To buy that piece of land. Yeah, so, and prices have gone up here as well. I know they have in the UK, but we were very lucky, and I don't want to go into, property wheeling and dealing because we are not those people, but when we bought our previous house in the UK, it was when there was a real dip in the market. So when we sold it, we bought dollars here, which, a significant amount of dollars here, which was a great start for us.
Excellent. Right.
But obviously, we did have to decide that we were going to stay before we bought a house, obviously.
Well, yeah.
That's quite a commitment in itself, really.
So you're back in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And you start, so how did the employment thing work out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one. I knew we were going to be talking a bit about careers today, and I think that's one reflection I've got is, don't overthink things, because actually they generally do work out. But so we came back, and my hubby got a job actually working for a software company that was making limb systems, selling them to Southeast Asia. And I didn't have a job for a couple of months, and now on reflection, I think I wish I'd enjoyed that time more, to be honest with you. Right. But anyway, a job came up at what was then the blood service, but it was the 2IC, as they call them, second in charge in the processing lab. Now, I could not, when I walked through the door, I have to say, and at that time the facility was really run down, great position, but you'd walk in the morning, you'd have to clear your desk off from all the stuff that was falling out the ceiling, and it was not a good place. And I honestly thought for the first probably year, this is not for me. I cannot be this far detached from patients, the stories, and all the rest of it. And so I was a 2IC in processing, and then almost immediately, the guy that was running it, who'd been in the role for 45 years, which at the time felt like such a long time, but now I'm 60, doesn't feel like that. He retired, and so they said, well, do you want to do this for a living? And I said, yeah, actually, I think I'll give it a crack. So then I became the processing manager. So we were taking in all the blood donations and making the products and everything.
Is that just for the local area or for a wider area?
No. So for the way that we work in Australia in Lifeblood is that there are 4 main processing centres for the whole of Australia. So the Brisbane one covers the whole of Queensland. As I said, it's an area about the 5th the size of Europe. So everything that's collected in our area comes into our centre, gets processed, and then distributed to all the hospitals throughout the country. So, Cairns is one of our hubs that we have hospitals and things. It's 2,000 kilometres away from here, and we distribute. So we do a lot of logistics and moving things around. So that was dealing with the whole of Queensland, but the scale was a lot smaller then. I think in the last 20 years that we've grown so much. We now collect, I think, 1.8 million donations a year. So, that's a lot of blood for the size of Australia. A lot of plasma, because we're trying to grow that. But I took that job, and then, not surprisingly, because in some ways it was, but surprisingly in other ways, I got pregnant with my daughter, and so that was a time when we didn't think that was ever going to happen. So that was like, oh, hang on a minute, what do we do now? We're late 30s and we've got a baby, and
well, you've got a big enough house.
Got a big enough house, but suddenly this is our priorities have switched a little bit.
Yeah,
and so it was actually in some ways quite fortuitous. While I was on mat leave, they contacted me and said, the Lifeblood, or Blood Service as it was then, contacted me and said, oh, look, how would you feel about moving into this transfusion specialist role, which is a sort of a scientific type role. It was one of those non-defined things, do what people ask you to do, that sort of stuff. And so I came back to that job, which was really good. But then there was a bit of a crisis at work, and I had to pivot into what we call order fulfillment. I don't know what you call it in the UK, but that sort of a distribution of products. And there was a crisis there, and the manager walked out, and we had to sort that out. So I did that for a little while, and then I sort of. And this is where you never know what's going to happen in your life, do you? And at that time, I was feeling a huge mum guilt because, and I'm sure, people that have had kids on the call will know what this feels like, where I knew I wasn't spending enough time. Even though I was supposed to be part-time, I was pretty much full-time. And so in my mind, I just kept thinking something has to change here. Something has to change. And then, which my husband thought at the time I was completely nuts, we had the opportunity to buy a gift shop. So at that point in 2008, I resigned. 2005, I resigned from my job. My daughter was 3, and went and played in a gift shop for 3 years, which was delightful, I have to say. Taught me that you can actually not use your brain and still be fulfilled. And I ran it with my sister-in-law. We really didn't make any money, but we had the best time. We laughed all day, and we bought fairy dresses and all of that sort of stuff. And my daughter could grow up there. She was, part of that. And so we did that for 3 years, and I honestly don't recall thinking, oh, I've ruined my career. I honestly did not think that. And then the global financial crisis hit. We'd grown the business, actually. It was doing really well, but we knew we had to either borrow more money and expand or, sell up and just shut it down. And that's what we did. So that was another 3 years where we just didn't do
and were any of the skills that you'd accumulated in the collection, processing and distribution of blood products came into the gift shop?
Oh, no, I think, there was a bit there. I think certainly managing people was a great one, because, that's been quite a big part of a lot of my career. Also dealing with suppliers and, logistics and all of that sort of stuff, that came into it. Dealing with the members of the public was a completely different skill set that I really didn't have.
The customer's always right.
That's exactly right, and they can come and find you. So there was a lot of learnings, actually, I think, and even spotting what would sell, and it was almost like it was an ability to use the creative side that we don't use in lab work, So, but it's thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, there is often some of the best scientists, though, have a creative side. It's either an outlet
Absolutely.
Or it's something. And there is a working theory that if you do something creative outside of the science, actually helps the science, because you're able to look at the science and go, well, I could do this or I could do that.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, the other thing is that people say that transfusion is more of an art than a science anyway. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
What type of gift shop was it?
It was very much fairies and unicorns and incense. And so it was it was actually a family member had it, and they'd completely run it down and needed to get out. So it was already there, but she didn't open half the time. It wasn't really being run very well. So we turned that around. And so I think, I talked to my daughter about it, actually, and she says, oh, I still remember, Mum, if I walk into a shop, that smell that the shop had because of the incense and everything. Yeah. And she said, it takes me back to those days when there was all those beautiful things. And I just think, I think it was a good thing for us.
Okay. So back to the blood transfusion. So
yes.
you shut the doors on the gift shop and packed away all your unicorns.
Yep.
And then what?
Still got some under the stairs. No. So we took a trip to the UK, because that was one thing about having the shop. It was really hard.
Don't tell me you went back to the UK.
No. Okay, just for a holiday. Just for a holiday. Yeah. So, and I think once my daughter was born, this became home, to be honest with you. There was no more flitting.
Of course.
And so we went back to the UK for a month or so, and then came back, and, as happens, somebody that I used to work with, who used to be our quality manager, was actually auditing. My husband got a job at one of the hospitals, and he was being audited by this lady that had been our quality manager. And she said, oh, what's Val up to? And my husband said, oh, she's sort of, not doing much. She's enjoying our daughter, but still down the market trying to sell things. I wasn't. And anyway, she said, oh, does she want a little bit of project work? We're doing some work to bring. So one of the complexities of Australia is that we live in the southern corner of Queensland. Now, next week, across the border, which is an hour's drive from here, their clocks will change and ours don't. So there's time differences that are, So they had a project to try to bring northern New South Wales product into Queensland. We'd never done it before, and they needed someone to work on that. So, and that was fine. And if you could just, while you're doing that, look after Townsville because, which is about 1,500 kilometres away from here, because there's something not right there and we need someone to go and have a look. So I took that on 2 days a week, and, that was fine. But as always happens, then it goes to 3 days a week, and then it was, could you just work full time for a little while? So I got back into that tack. My daughter was now at school, so that was okay. And then then a job came up managing I'm not sure if you use the same terminology, but our process control laboratory. So doing hematology, but also the quality testing on the products for factor VIII and, hemoglobin and all of those sort of things in Brisbane. And so I took that on because that sort of satisfied my love of hematology and, all of that sort of stuff. And then and there is a bit of a theme here, I have to say. I got approached and they said, look, there's a big problem in our red cell serology lab. Could you go and work in there for a few weeks to see what's going on? So I did that, and then I moved from process control then into red cell serology, and then I was in there for probably 2 years, got that sort of up to speed and all the rest of it. And then we had a massive restructure, and they made all of the laboratory manager roles redundant.
Okay.
That's keeping up. So my role was made redundant, and at the time it was a huge restructure, and I was offered, which was very bizarre at the time, the lean coordinator role. So we do lean manufacturing, continuous improvement type thing. I had not one clue about what to do there, and I've subsequently realised that the reason that they did that was that they just wanted to keep me. And so until an appropriate role came up. So I did that for probably about 6 months. And I said to my boss, what do I need to do here? And he said, just help people because everyone's really upset, and just help people. So I sort of did that for a while. And then within 6 months, the production manager role came up, which was basically the manager of processing and testing.
Yeah.
And so I applied for that, and I got that. And so I was in that role for quite some time, and got to see another. I guess to see the bigger picture of testing had become one laboratory as opposed to infectious diseases, red cell serology, all those things had become one, and then processing was they sort of were together really as a pair. So I did that for a little while. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling here. And
not at all.
But then so from there, so bearing in mind now, I've pretty much done all the roles within our area of the business, and the regional director role became available, and that role was to basically manage the blood supply from the donor centre right out to the customer for Queensland. So that role became available. It never fails to amaze me, and I'm sure you find the same, Mike. Every single thing you do, and every day you learn something you didn't know before.
Oh, yes.
And so, suddenly I'm managing a facility, and I'm managing every part of it. I'm managing the drivers that go out and move the mobile units around. And I have to say, on my second day in that role, one of our drivers drove into some power lines and took them down on top of the donor centre.
Oh, dear.
And I remember just sitting in my office thinking, I don't know what to do. So that role taught me a lot, and it sort of evolved over time, but was probably the one where we built a great team because we were regional. Everybody knew each other. There was a great camaraderie in that team, and so I did that, and it was lovely. And I thought it was really difficult until we had another restructure, and we were moved into national roles. So rather than being a quarter of the country, you had a slice of the country for lots of different things. So that was the role that I moved into 2 years ago.
Right. Okay. We touched on that at the top of this conversation. I.e., what do you do?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to expand on that then. So.
Sure. So currently, and we're about to be restructured again. So currently, right now, today, is I look after our scientific and technical services teams, which basically support operations in anything scientific or technical. So do all the equipment maintenance, the managing deviations, managing audit responses, troubleshooting, whatever needs to be done on a day-to-day or a basis. So there's 4 regional teams, one in each of our sites. And then I've got a national team who look after more, I guess, the governance, the therapeutic goods, coordination, supplier work, all of that sort of stuff. And then I've got the manufacturing applications team who look after the software, not the broader software, but the software that runs. We're highly automated in our labs. We've got tracks in each lab, the track software, the interfaces, all of that sort of stuff. Then I've got building management, which is the 4 processing centres and the teams that manage those, so environmental monitoring, security, contractor management, all of those sorts of stuff.
Good grief.
And then just to add to that, I can't even remember what they're called now, the planning and performance team who look after, part of that is having some dedicated trainers. So that's quite a new thing for us, is people that are not training as part of their day job, but that they do that as a role, and ensuring compliance and all of that sort of stuff, but also do engagement activities, business continuity exercises, all sorts of bits and pieces there. Yeah. So it's quite broad right now, and to the point where I sometimes feel that, it's hard to focus. So in our new world, which is coming in 13 days, I will purely be looking after our scientific and technical services teams and our testing team. So bringing them all together, and that makes a lot of sense to me that, they're on the same team and they know what they're doing. So, I think that's quite exciting. It would give me the opportunity to focus more on that rather than the breadth of, all those different functions across the business. So, it's quite a lot.
So it sounds a bit like a career with a never-ending change profile, where,
yes,
I guess for some biomedical scientists, you can often see where the end is. I.e., you can either go into stay with clinical. I mean, in the UK, basically, it's broken into two boxes. One is stay clinical or go to management.
Yeah.
Yours, and the world of blood transfusion always fascinates me, because there's all sorts of other stuff that's halfway in between the management and the clinical, so like quality testing, hugely involved.
Yeah.
In terms of, so I guess you can't answer the question, can you? Is what happens next, or what you might want to do, because is that not?
Yes. So just in my spare time, just to let you know, this year's been crazy, by the way, for very many reasons. But what I have been doing is I did the Australian Institute Company Directors course as well this year, and graduated from that. And that actually gives me the opportunity to apply for.
But it'll help with the unicorns.
Well, that's exactly right. Someone's got to manage them. So that would give me the opportunity in the future to potentially look at board positions. I don't know what that looks like yet, but it's another string to my bow, I guess. You look in that course, you look at legal, governance, finances, all of that sort of stuff. So that, whilst it was quite challenging, and in a raft of lots of different things going on, I'm quite glad I did that, because that gives me an option. But the future for me, I think, probably only got a couple more years at this level, to be honest with you. I think, it comes a time when someone else needs to take over the reins and do these things. I love the mentoring. I'm mentoring through ISBT, which is how I ended up talking to you today. And I can see that potentially that's something that I can add value in the future. To be honest with you, Micah, I've never been ambitious or, want to be at the top of the chain and that type of thing. But I've also never not taken opportunities. And I think that's for me is a reflecting on what's happened. I guess it's a confidence, having confidence in yourself to give it a crack, because, hey, what's the worst that can happen, So I think it's, I love people. That's a big part of, I guess, why I've had so many management roles, because I love people. And it's hard to know because, interestingly, my daughter, who's 22 now, is doing biomedical science. And I said to my husband, I can't really say there's no career in this for you, because my husband's the ops manager for the biggest hospital in Australia in pathology, and I'm doing this. But,
you're building a dynasty now.
Yeah, that's right. But both of us went, oh, are you sure? It's a different world, I guess, now. So I think some people know what they need to do and where they need to be. I'm not one of those people. And as I said, 20 years ago, when I went to the blood service, I thought, oh, this isn't for me. And here I am. So
I guess your daughter, to a certain extent, has seen her parents quite enjoy their jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing for me, I think my background, particularly in transfusion and those nights, managing the aneurysms and all of that sort of stuff on call, it's kept me close to the patients. And so I said this to my guys at work, whatever decision we make, we're talking about somebody's safety, and that's where we need to be focusing. So for me, the purpose of our organisation is such a big magnet for me to stay at the moment, and to be able to sort of go to sleep at night knowing that we've done the best that we can. So I guess from a point of view of, getting back to your question, which was a long time ago, about what next, and I literally don't know, but I think I don't want to go any higher. I'm 60. I travel a lot. It's not glamorous, that's for sure, and I don't want it to be glamorous. But I do think I'll just see what happens next.
But you're
no point worrying about it.
You're making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I see so many young scientists coming through. If we can just grab that energy, and, I love working with the young guys at work because they're just, everything's not a problem for them. They're just excited to be there still. And if we can grab that, then that's a fantastic thing.
If you went back to the beginning, being where you are now, what advice would you have given to yourself?
A couple of things, actually. Back yourself, because actually no one else is going to back you in the way, people, you need to tell people how good you are, because actually otherwise you get overlooked. That's just the way of the world, unfortunately. And give it a crack, because you never know what's going to happen. But if you don't try, you can't do it.
Well, I think what we're going to do, because we've nearly got to the perfect length for a podcast, with those incredibly wise words, I'm going to thank you for taking part in it. What a journey. How amazing is that?
Thank you.
I think we'll say cheerio to everybody in Australia and in the UK and in the world that are listening to this. And we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Cheerio.
Thanks very much, Mike. See you.
Bye.
Bye.